The dawn came cold over Helmbrechts. April 13th, 1945. The war had 11 days left to live, though no one knew it yet. The American 358th Infantry Regiment rolled through what remained of the camp gates at 6 in the morning, their boots crunching on frozen mud that had seen too much death. Sergeant Nathaniel Pierce stepped down from the transport truck and stopped breathing. He had seen death before: North Africa, Sicily, the long crawl through France. He had wrapped the shattered bodies of boys who would never go home. He had closed the eyes of men who died calling for their mothers. He was 32 years old and had been a combat medic for 3 years. He thought he understood what war could do to human beings. He was wrong. The camp spread before him like a vision of hell rendered in mud and wire. 580 women, skeletal figures in striped rags, stared at the American soldiers with eyes that had forgotten what hope looked like. They stood in the morning cold, not moving, not speaking, just watching. Some were so thin their bones showed through translucent skin. Others could not stand at all. Near the eastern fence, bodies were stacked like cordwood. Nathaniel counted 20 before he stopped counting. The dead and the dying looked the same here. The smell hit him next: typhus, dysentery, gangrene. The sweet rot of bodies left too long in the open air. He had smelled death before, but not like this. Not death as an industry. Not death as policy. Captain Garrett Ashford appeared at his shoulder. 34 years old, a veteran of every campaign since Kasserine Pass, with gray already threading through his dark hair. His face was carved from stone. "Pierce," he said quietly, "medical station is the building on the left. Get it operational. We've got maybe 200 critical cases. Typhus outbreak 3 weeks ago. The crematorium couldn't keep up." Nathaniel nodded, not trusting his voice. "And Pierce," Ashford added, "there are 40 German guards still here, mostly women, SS Auxiliary Corps. They didn't run when the senior officers fled 5 days ago." "Why not?" "Some are too sick. Some are too afraid." Ashford's jaw tightened. "Some say they stayed to help. The prisoners want them dead. Keep your head down and focus on the wounded." Behind them, Corporal Elias Brennan was vomiting into the mud. 20 years old, Polish grandmother who died at Treblinka, barely enough beard to shave. He wiped his mouth and looked at Nathaniel with eyes full of rage. "They did this," Elias said. His voice shook. "Those guards did this. To women, to children." Sergeant Caleb Whitmore, 29, from Alabama. Black skin that made him intimately familiar with systems designed to crush human dignity, put a hand on Elias's shoulder. "Easy, son. We're here to help now. That's all we can do." But Nathaniel saw the way Caleb's hands trembled, saw the muscle jumping in his jaw. Nobody was easy here. Nobody could be. The medical station was a converted administrative building. Inside, Nathaniel found Lillian Ashford already setting up, her nurse's uniform crisp despite 3 days of travel. 27 years old, the captain's younger sister, she had followed her brother through every campaign. Her hands never stopped moving. "We've got morphine, sulfa drugs, bandages," she said without looking up. "Not nearly enough. I count at least 50 women who won't survive the night without intervention." "Then we intervene," Nathaniel said. She met his eyes. "With what? We've got supplies for maybe 20 patients. There are 580 prisoners in this camp, Nathaniel. Do the math." He had no answer for that. The mathematics of triage. The arithmetic of who lives and who dies. He had done it before, but never on this scale. Outside, the sun climbed higher, indifferent. At 6:30 in the morning, screaming tore through the camp. The sound came from near the latrine trenches, high and desperate. German words Nathaniel did not understand, but the tone was universal. Terror. Grief. The sound humans make when death is close. He grabbed his medical bag and ran. 3 women in tattered SS auxiliary uniforms stood in a cluster, 20 feet from the latrines. They were shouting, gesturing at something on the ground. When they saw Nathaniel approaching, one of them, maybe 35 with gray streaking her matted blonde hair, stumbled forward. "Lasst sie!" she screamed. "Sie ist tot!" Nathaniel's German was basic, learned from a phrasebook during the crossing to England, but he understood enough. "Leave her. She's dead." He pushed past the guards. A woman lay face up in the frozen mud. 24 years old, though she looked older. Blonde hair fanned around her head in a halo of ice. SS uniform torn and filthy. Lips the color of bruises. Skin with that particular blue-gray shade that comes from profound hypothermia. She looked dead. She looked like she had been dead for hours. Nathaniel dropped to his knees beside her, his medical bag hitting the mud with a wet thump. His fingers found her throat, pressing against the carotid artery, searching for a pulse he knew would not be there. Nothing. No pulse. No warmth. No life. Just cold flesh and the absolute stillness of death. The German guard with the gray-streaked hair stepped closer. She was older than Nathaniel had first thought. Maybe 40. Her face ravaged by exhaustion and something that might have been shame. "Helga," she said, pointing to herself, then to the body. "Anna. Anna Bergman." Her English was broken, but determined. "She sick. Typhus. She go to latrine. She fall. We find her 1 hour later. Already cold. Already—" She made a gesture of finality. "Tot. Dead." Nathaniel checked for breathing, put his ear close to her mouth. Felt nothing. No warm exhalation. No mist on the cold morning air. He pulled back her eyelid. The eye beneath was glassy, fixed, the pupil dilated wide. A corpse's eye. "How long?" he asked. Helga struggled with the words. "Find her 7 o'clock, maybe. Now is—" She looked at the weak sun. 9:30. 2 hours, maybe more. In the cold. In the mud. She shook her head. "Please, do not waste time. Many prisoners need help. She is gone." Behind Nathaniel, boots in the mud, Captain Ashford arrived with Elias Brennan close behind. Both men stopped when they saw the SS uniform. "Pierce," Ashford said, his voice tight. "We've got 500 dying prisoners who need medical attention. Don't waste resources on SS trash." Nathaniel ignored him. He was running calculations in his head. Found an hour after she fell. Probably collapsed around 6 a.m., maybe earlier. It was now 9:30. 3.5 hours minimum in near-freezing temperatures. Already sick with typhus. Already malnourished. The temperature overnight had dropped to maybe 35 degrees Fahrenheit. At that temperature, the body shuts down. The heart slows to almost nothing. Breathing becomes so shallow it is imperceptible to the human eye. The line between life and death blurs into something medicine struggles to define. He had read case studies. Swiss mountain climbers pulled from avalanches after 6 hours in the snow. No pulse, no breathing, revived with slow rewarming. Alpine medicine had a saying, a principle that haunted the edges of emergency care. Nobody is dead until they are warm and dead. His hand moved almost without conscious thought, the penlight from his bag. He lifted her eyelid again, the one he had already checked, and shined the beam directly into the dilated pupil. For a moment, nothing. Then, barely perceptible, a flicker. The pupil contracted. Not much, maybe a millimeter, but it contracted. Nathaniel's world stopped. "Sir," he said quietly, not looking up, "I've got pupil response." "Impossible." Ashford stepped closer. "She's been dead for hours." "Or maybe she's in profound hypothermia." Nathaniel checked the other eye. Same response, minimal, but present. "There's a principle in alpine medicine, sir. Nobody's dead until they're warm and dead." Elias Brennan spat into the mud. "Let the Nazi bitch freeze. My grandmother died at Treblinka because of people like her." The words hung in the cold air like poison. Nathaniel looked up at the young corporal, saw the pain there, the generational trauma, the rage that had nowhere to go except at the woman lying dead in the mud. Or not dead. Or somewhere between. "Elias," he said quietly, "I understand. I do. But I can't make that choice." "The hell you can't!" Elias's voice was rising. "She's SS. She helped run this place. She helped kill all these women. And you want to save her?" Before Nathaniel could respond, Sergeant Caleb Whitmore spoke. His voice was calm, measured, the voice of a man who had thought deeply about justice and mercy and the distance between them. "Let him try, sir." Everyone turned to look at him. Caleb met their stares without flinching. "We're not them. We don't get to decide someone's not worth saving because we hate what they did. That's what they did. That's what made them monsters. We have to be better than that. Or what the hell are we fighting for?" The words settled over the group like snow. Ashford was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice had steel in it. "1 hour, Pierce. You get 1 hour. If she's not responding, you move to the prisoners. Clear?" "Clear, sir." Nathaniel turned to Helga. "Help me carry her." The German woman stared at him like he had spoken an alien language. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. Sie, you save her? But she is guard. She is enemy. She's dying. Help me carry her." Helga looked at the other 2 SS guards. Both women were younger, maybe early 20s, their faces hollow with fear and exhaustion. They had expected execution, expected to be left to die, expected anything except this. They lifted Anna Bergman carefully. Her body was rigid, limbs locked in position by the cold. She weighed perhaps 90 pounds. Malnutrition had consumed whatever healthy weight she had once carried. As they moved through the camp toward the medical station, prisoners watched. Some faces showed confusion. Some showed satisfaction, thinking the Americans were moving a corpse for burial. But when they realized the soldiers were carrying the SS guard toward medical help, the mood shifted. An older woman, skeletal and hollow-eyed, screamed something in Yiddish that Nathaniel did not understand, but felt in his bones. Near the barracks entrance stood Sarah Klein, 43 years old but looking 70, her body destroyed by 18 months of forced labor and starvation. She had lost her husband, her 3 children, her entire world. She watched the procession with eyes that had seen too much to be shocked by anything anymore. "Why?" she asked in accented English as Nathaniel passed. Not angry, not bitter, just genuinely confused. Why her? Nathaniel met her eyes. Because she's dying. We're all dying. Sarah's voice was flat. But we didn't choose to wear that uniform. There was no answer to that. Nathaniel knew it, but he kept walking. The medical station smelled of disinfectant and desperation. Lillian Ashford looked up as they entered, her eyes widening when she saw the SS uniform. Nathaniel, what? Profound hypothermia. Possible hypothermic arrest. I need blankets, warm IV fluids, and a thermometer. Now. Lillian hesitated for only a second. They had been through North Africa together, through Sicily, through France. She had learned not to question him during medical emergencies. They laid Anna Bergman on a gurney. Nathaniel cut away the uniform with medical shears, checking for injuries. What he found made him pause. 20 linear scars across her back, recently healed, the skin still pink. Whip marks. 3 circular burns on her left shoulder blade, the distinctive pattern of cigarette burns. Torture marks. Lillian, he said quietly, look at this. She leaned in, her breath catching. She was tortured by her own people. Nathaniel checked Anna's core temperature with a rectal thermometer, the only reliable method for hypothermia. The reading made him close his eyes. 79 degrees Fahrenheit. At 79 degrees, this woman should have been dead an hour ago. The medical literature said survival was possible, but rare. Vanishingly rare. Nathaniel had never seen anyone survive core hypothermia below 80 degrees. Start rewarming protocol, he ordered, his voice steady despite the impossibility of what he was attempting. Slow and steady. We bring her up 1 degree per hour, no faster. Too fast and her heart will stop for real. They wrapped Anna in blankets, started an IV line with warmed saline, the fluid heated to body temperature, placed heated packs around her neck, armpits, and groin, the areas where major blood vessels ran close to the surface. And they waited. Outside the window, a crowd had begun to gather. Word had spread through the camp like wildfire. The Americans were trying to save an SS guard. Reactions ranged from confusion to fury. Helga Schmidt stood at the window watching. Beside her, one of the younger guards, maybe 20, was crying silently. Sie war gut, the young woman whispered in German. Sie hat versucht zu helfen. Sie gaben den Gefangenen Essen. Sie schlugen sie dafür. She was good. She tried to help. She gave food to prisoners. They beat her for it. Inside, Nathaniel checked vital signs every 5 minutes. For the first hour, nothing changed. Anna Bergman remained suspended in that gray space between life and death, her body neither alive nor fully gone, existing in a medical limbo that defied every protocol Nathaniel had ever learned. At 10:45, Elias Brennan appeared in the doorway. His face was set, angry, trembling with barely controlled rage. 3 more prisoners died in the barracks while you're in here playing God with a Nazi. Nathaniel did not look up from the IV line he was adjusting. Then go help them, Elias. There are other medics. She doesn't need you. She needs a grave. Get out. You're wasting time on... I said get out! Nathaniel's voice cracked like a whip, surprising everyone, including himself. You want to help the dying? Go help them. But don't stand here and tell me who deserves medical care. I'm a medic. I took an oath. That oath doesn't have exceptions for people I hate. Now get out of my medical station. Elias left, his boots heavy on the wooden floor. Lillian cleared her throat softly. He's not wrong, you know. I know. Nathaniel's voice was softer now, tired. But Lillian, if I walk away from her, if I decide she's not worth saving because of what she wore, then what am I? What do I become? She did not answer. There was no good answer. just choices and the weight of living with them. Hour 2 brought the first change. Anna's temperature had risen to 82 degrees, still dangerously low, but no longer incompatible with life. And then Nathaniel felt it. A pulse. Faint, irregular, barely there, but present. 30 beats per minute, far below normal, but a heartbeat nonetheless. "Lillian," he said, his voice catching, "I've got a pulse." She checked for herself, her fingers on Anna's throat, and her eyes widened. "My God!" "Get Captain Ashford." Ashford arrived 5 minutes later, skeptical written across his face. But when Nathaniel guided his fingers to Anna's carotid artery, that skepticism transformed into shock. "How is this possible?" "I don't know, sir, but she's alive." "Barely, but alive." Outside the window, Helga Schmidt saw the American's reactions and understood. She pressed her hand against the glass, tears streaming down her weathered face, and whispered in German, "Anna, Anna, du lebst." "Anna, you live." Hour 3, 11:30 in the morning. The temperature climbed to 84 degrees. The pulse strengthened to 40 beats per minute. Anna's fingers, previously rigid with cold, began to show the faintest hint of pink beneath the nails. Nathaniel sat beside the gurney, monitoring, adjusting, willing her body back from the edge. Lillian brought him coffee. He did not drink it. At noon, Captain Ashford returned. "She's stable?" "Getting there. Temperature's at 87 now. She'll live." Ashford was quiet for a moment. "Then I need you on the typhus cases. 30 critical patients, 2 medics. Do the math, Pierce." He was right. The moral calculus was clear. 1 stabilized patient versus 30 dying ones. 2 hours, sir. Let me get her to 95 degrees. Then I'm yours." Ashford studied him. "Half the camp thinks you're crazy for doing this. And the other half thinks you're brave, or stupid." Ashford almost smiled. 2 hours, Pierce. Not a minute more." As Ashford left, something changed. Anna's eyes, closed since they brought her in, began to move beneath the lids. Rapid eye movement, like someone dreaming, or like someone fighting their way back to consciousness from a place most people never return from. Nathaniel leaned closer, watching. At 12:15, he began cutting away the rest of her clothing to continue the examination. That was when he made the second discovery. The whip marks on her back were not old, 3 weeks at most. The flesh was healed, but the scarring was fresh, angry red lines that told the story of brutal punishment. But it was the burns that made him stop. 3 cigarette burns on her left shoulder blade, arranged in a triangle. Deliberate, methodical. The kind of burns someone makes when they want to cause pain without causing death. "She was tortured," Lillian said again, standing beside him now. "Recently. Helga had said Anna gave food to prisoners, had said they beat her for it. Nathaniel had assumed she meant the prisoners. But looking at these marks, at the systematic cruelty of them, he understood. Anna Bergman had been tortured by her own command, by the SS, by the very system she had served. "Lillian," he said slowly, "what if she's not what we think she is? She wore the uniform, Nathaniel. She was here. She participated. But what if she tried to resist? What if she was punished for it?" Lillian looked at the scars, at the burns, at the emaciated body of a woman who should have been healthy at 24, but looked 40. Then she's still guilty, just complicated. Complicated, that was one word for it. Helga Schmidt appeared in the doorway, hesitant, asking permission with her eyes. Nathaniel nodded. She approached the gurney, looking down at Anna's face. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper, but Nathaniel heard every word. She gave bread to prisoners. 3 times. The 3rd time, Obersturmführer Koch found out. They beat her. 20 lashes. I watched. I did nothing. Helga's tears fell on the blanket covering Anna. And then the typhus came, and the officers ran. And Anna was too sick to run. So she stayed. We all stayed. Because running meant we learned nothing. Why are you telling me this? Nathaniel asked. Helga looked at him with eyes full of a guilt he could not begin to measure. Because you need to know what you saved. Not a monster, not a hero, just a woman who tried sometimes and failed mostly, like all of us. Hour 4, 1:30 in the afternoon. Anna Bergman's core temperature reached 90 degrees. Her heartbeat, 55 beats per minute, was approaching normal. The IV fluids had begun to restore some color to her skin. And then her eyes opened. Not the slow flutter of someone waking from normal sleep, but the violent snap of someone pulled from drowning. Her back arched off the gurney. Her hands clawed at the blankets. A sound came from her throat that was not quite a scream, not quite a gasp, but something primal and terrified. "Hold her steady!" Nathaniel's hands were on her shoulders as Lillian grabbed her legs. Anna thrashed against them, fighting consciousness itself, making sounds that were not words. "Anna! Anna Bergman!" Nathaniel kept his voice calm, steady, the voice he used for soldiers coming out of shock. "You're safe. American hospital. You're safe." The word American penetrated. Her thrashing stopped. Her eyes, wild and unfocused, locked onto Nathaniel's face, onto his uniform. An American soldier. She knew what that meant. The propaganda had been clear. Americans tortured prisoners. Americans showed no mercy to SS personnel. "Bitte," the word came out broken, desperate. "Bitte nicht töten." Please don't kill me. Nathaniel kept his hands gentle on her shoulders. "Du bist sicher," he said, the German phrases coming from the phrase book he had memorized during the crossing. "Ich bin Arzt." You are safe. I am a doctor. Anna searched his face for cruelty and found only exhaustion. Her breathing was ragged, her body still fighting against the trauma of near death and resurrection. "Warum?" she whispered. "Why?" "Because you were dying, and I'm a medic." "Aber ich bin Wache." "But I am a guard." Her English was accented, but clear. "Ich bin Feind." I am enemy. "You were dying," Nathaniel repeated. "Now lie still. Your core temperature is 87 degrees. We need to get you to 95. Anna lay back against the gurney. Tears streamed down her face, cutting tracks through the dirt and cold sweat. She whispered something in German that Nathaniel did not catch, but he thought it might have been, "Ich verdiene das nicht." I don't deserve this. Outside, faces pressed against the windows. Prisoners watching with fury. Guards watching with awe. American soldiers watching with various degrees of approval and disgust. The woman who should have died was alive. And Nathaniel Pierce had no idea what that meant, only that he had made a choice he would carry for the rest of his life. Anna's eyes closed again, but this time it was sleep, not death. Her breathing evened out. Her pulse continued its steady climb toward normal. At 2 o'clock, her temperature hit 92 degrees. At 2:30, Nathaniel stood, his back aching, his hands trembling with exhaustion. "Lillian, monitor her every 15 minutes. If her temperature drops or her pulse becomes irregular, come get me immediately." "Where are you going?" "To help the other patients, the ones Elias was right about." He walked to the door, then turned back. Anna was sleeping, her face peaceful for the first time since they had brought her in. She looked younger now, 24. Just a girl, really. A girl who had made terrible choices, or had terrible choices made for her. He did not know which, and was not sure it mattered. "Nathaniel," Lillian said softly, "you did the right thing." "Did I?" "You saved a life. That's what we do." "I saved an SS guard while prisoners died. That's what I did." "You saved a human being. That's what you did." He wanted to believe her, but as he walked out into the cold afternoon air, past the prisoners who stared at him with betrayal in their eyes, past Elias Brennan who would not meet his gaze, past the stacked bodies waiting for burial, he was not sure what he believed anymore. Only that he had made a choice, and that choice, like Anna Bergman herself, would have to live. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across Helmbrecht's concentration camp. 30 critical typhus patients waited. The mathematics of triage waited. The judgment of history waited. Nathaniel Pierce walked toward the barracks, his medical bag heavy on his shoulder, and wondered if mercy was always right, or if sometimes it was just cowardice dressed in noble clothing. Behind him, in the medical station, Anna Bergman dreamed. And whatever she dreamed, her face suggested it was not peace. The first day was ending. The consequences were just beginning. The afternoon died slowly over Helmbrecht's. Nathaniel Pierce moved through the barracks like a ghost, treating patients who had waited too long for help that might come too late. Typhus, dysentery, starvation so profound that bodies had begun consuming their own organs. He worked until his hands cramped, until Lillian had to physically pull him away from a woman whose pulse had stopped beneath his fingers. 30 critical patients. He saved 14. 16 died while he worked. The mathematics of triage. The arithmetic of insufficient miracles. When he finally returned to the medical station at 7 in the evening, Anna Bergman was awake. She sat propped against pillows, her core temperature finally at 95 degrees, her eyes clear and focused on the window where the last light was fading. She turned when he entered. Her face showed no emotion, just acknowledgement. "How many?" she asked in English. Nathaniel set down his medical bag. "How many what?" "How many died while you saved me?" The question hung between them like smoke. 16, he said. No point in lying. Anna nodded slowly, as if confirming something she already knew. "Then I owe 16 debts I can never repay." "You don't owe me anything." "Not to you. To them." She looked back at the window. "I hear shouting earlier. The prisoners. They are angry you saved me, yes?" "Yes." "This is good. They should be angry. I would be angry." Nathaniel pulled up a chair, his body finally acknowledging the exhaustion of 12 hours without rest. "Anna, I need to ask you something. The scars on your back, the burns. Who did that to you?" She was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was flat, reciting facts. "Obersturmführer Koch. 3 weeks ago, I gave bread to a prisoner, a woman with a dying child. It was the 3rd time. The 3rd time she caught me." "Why did you do it?" "Because I could not watch the child die and do nothing." Anna's hands tightened on the blanket. "The mother, her name was Sarah something. I do not remember the last name. She was crying in the barracks. Her daughter, maybe 8 years old, was dying from starvation. so I gave my ration. Just bread, nothing more. Nathaniel felt something cold settle in his chest. Sarah Klein? Anna's eyes snapped to his. You know her? She was in the crowd today, when we carried you to the medical station. She asked me why I was saving you. And what did you tell her? I told her you were dying. Anna laughed, but there was no humor in it. And did you tell her I gave her daughter bread? That I am the reason her daughter lived 3 more weeks to suffer? You gave her 3 more weeks with her child. I gave her 3 more weeks of watching her child starve to death slowly instead of quickly. Tell me, Sergeant Pierce, was that mercy or cruelty? Nathaniel had no answer. Anna lay back against the pillows. After Koch beat me, they were going to transfer me to punishment battalion. But then the typhus came. The senior officers, they fled. And I was too sick to run, too sick to do anything except lie in the barracks and wait to die. But you didn't die. No, you would not let me. She looked at him with eyes that had seen too much. Why? I told you, because you were dying, and I'm a medic. There must be more than that. Nathaniel stood, too tired for philosophy. Get some rest. Tomorrow, there will be questions, official questions, from people who make decisions about what happens to you. You mean the trial? Yes. And they will want to know what I did here, at the camp. Yes. Anna nodded. Then I will tell them everything. The truth is all I have left. As Nathaniel reached the door, her voice stopped him. Sergeant Pierce, thank you for the gift of accountability. Death would have been easier. Living with what I have done, that is the real punishment. So thank you for making me live. He left without responding, because there was nothing he could say to that. The confrontation came the next day. 50 prisoners gathered in the yard outside the barracks, their faces carved from anger and pain. They had spent the night whispering among themselves, passing the story of the SS guard who should have died but lived because an American soldier chose mercy over justice. At the center of the crowd stood Sarah Klein, 43 years old, body destroyed, but her voice still carried authority. She had been a teacher before the war, a mother, a wife. Now she was the voice of the dead, speaking for those who could no longer speak for themselves. 7 SS guards huddled against the far wall, American soldiers standing between them and the prisoners with rifles at the ready. The soldiers' faces showed uncertainty. They had liberated concentration camps before, but never one where the guards had stayed to face justice. Sarah Klein's voice cut through the morning air like broken glass. They stayed, she said in mixed English and German so everyone would understand. They could have run, but they stayed. They watched us die. They distributed the starvation rations. They stood watch while we were beaten. And now the Americans save one, while our people die in the barracks. Where is the justice? A roar of agreement. Someone threw a rock. It sailed past Helga Schmidt's head and clattered against the wall. Nathaniel pushed through the crowd. Captain Ashford was already there, his hand on his sidearm, his face grim. Sarah, Nathaniel said, using her first name deliberately, making it personal. She turned, and he saw betrayal in her eyes. You saved her. You saved SS, while my people died. I saved a dying woman, a dying Nazi, a dying human being. The crowd pressed closer. Nathaniel could smell their anger, hot and sharp. You want me to decide who deserves medical care based on their uniform? His voice rose to carry across the yard. Based on their crimes? Where does it stop? Do I refuse to treat enemy soldiers? Do I only save people who pass some moral purity test? Yes, someone shouted from the crowd. They deserve nothing. Nathaniel addressed them all now, turning in a slow circle. I'm a medic. I took an oath. That oath doesn't have exceptions for people I hate. If I start making exceptions, if I decide some lives are worth saving and others aren't, then I become something I can't live with. Then you're a coward, a voice called. Maybe, Nathaniel admitted. Or maybe doing what's right means treating people like people, even when they've acted like monsters. That woman was dying, and I had the skill to maybe save her, and I couldn't walk away. If that makes me wrong, then I'm wrong. But I can sleep at night. Sarah Klein stepped closer. The crowd parted for her. When she spoke, her voice had dropped to something barely above a whisper, but in the sudden silence, everyone heard. She gave me bread once, in January, when my daughter Rachel was dying. The crowd went still. This guard, Anna Bergman, she gave me her ration. She whispered, "Für das Kind," for the child. My daughter lived 3 more weeks because of that bread. Nathaniel stared. Then why are you angry I saved her? Sarah's voice broke. Because those 3 more weeks meant 3 more weeks watching her starve. Because that bread gave me hope, and hope in here is cruelty. Because she wore that uniform even while she tried to help. Because she is both victim and perpetrator, and I don't know how to hold both truths at the same time. Because everything is complicated, and I'm so tired of complicated. The words fell into the silence like stones into water. Sarah turned to face the crowd. This guard gave me bread. She also stood watch while my husband was beaten to death. She helped prisoners in secret and participated in the system that murdered us. She is both things, both, and I don't know what to do with that. She looked back at Nathaniel. You saved her because you're a good man. Maybe that's right, but it doesn't feel right. Nothing feels right anymore. Nathaniel spoke quietly, just to her. The world is broken, Sarah, but we're stuck living in it anyway. We can either add more breaking, or we can try to hold what's left together. The tension deflated slowly, not resolved, but exhausted. The prisoners dispersed, muttering, some still angry, others just confused. The guards remained huddled against the wall, safe for now. Helga Schmidt approached Nathaniel as the crowd thinned. Her weathered face carried decades of choices she could not undo. Danke, she said. Thank you. But why you stay? Why not run? Nathaniel was too tired for this conversation. I'm a soldier. This is where I was ordered to be. No, I mean us, the guards. Why we not run? She paused, searching for English words. Some sick, yes. Some afraid, yes. But some... She trailed off, then found the phrase. Some tired of running. I was teacher before war. My husband, SS officer, he says I must serve. I think is patriotic duty. I was wrong. Her eyes filled with tears. I do not know how to be that woman again. The teacher, the good person. I only know I cannot run anymore. I must face what I have done, even if facing means dying. She walked away, back to the other guards, leaving Nathaniel standing alone in the yard. Above, clouds gathered. The weather was turning. That night, Nathaniel returned to the medical station. Anna was sitting up now, strong enough to hold a cup of water without her hands shaking. Her color had improved. She would live. The question was what that life would mean. "I heard the shouting today," she said as he entered. "The prisoners. They want the guards dead. I understand this. Some wanted you dead. Others defended you. Sarah Klein told everyone about the bread." Anna's cup trembled. "She defended me?" "In a way. She said you were complicated, that you helped and harmed, both." "And what do you think, Sergeant Pierce?" Nathaniel sat down heavily. "I think we all do things we regret. The question is whether we face them or run from them." "I tried to run, into death. You stopped me." "Yes. So now I must live with what I did, every day, for however long they let me live." Silence settled between them. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows. Anna set down her cup. "I need to tell you something. Before the official questions come, before the trial. I need you to know what you saved." "You don't have to." "Yes, I do." Her voice was firm. "You gave me life. The least I can do is tell you the truth about what that life has been." And so she told him. About her brother, an SS officer, who pressured her to join the Auxiliary Corps 8 months ago. About the first execution she witnessed in November. How she vomited afterward. How the other guards laughed. About the gradual numbing, the way atrocity becomes routine. About the 3 times she gave food to prisoners. The first time, an elderly woman near death. Anna had slipped her bread and never told anyone. The second time, a young girl, maybe 16, who reminded Anna of her sister. More bread. A whispered word of encouragement. The third time, Sarah Klein and her dying daughter. The time Obersturmführer Koch caught her. "And then there was the woman I hit," Anna said quietly. Nathaniel's attention sharpened. A woman, maybe 50 years old. She tried to steal bread from the supply room. She was caught. Koch ordered me to punish her. Anna's hands clenched. "I said no. I refused. Koch said if I did not, she would report me for insubordination, for the bread I had given away. She said I would be sent to punishment battalion. So I—" She stopped, her breathing ragged. "So I hit her, with a stick, hard enough to break skin, hard enough to draw blood. The woman screamed, and I hit her again because Koch was watching, and I was afraid." Tears streamed down Anna's face now. The woman was sent to punishment barracks. I never saw her again. I asked once, quietly, what happened to her. Another guard told me she died 3 days later. Typhus, they said. But I know the truth. The punishment barracks, they are death sentences. Everyone knows this. She looked at Nathaniel with eyes full of a pain that had no bottom. "So yes, I gave bread 3 times. But I also killed that woman. Maybe not with my own hands directly, but I sent her to die. I chose my safety over her life. I chose to be a coward instead of a hero. And every night since, I see her face. I see the blood on the stick. I see her eyes looking at me, asking why." Nathaniel sat very still. This was the moment, the revelation that made everything complicated. "Do you know her name?" he asked quietly. "No, I never asked. She was just a number to us, a prisoner, not a person." "And that's what you'll tell the investigators? All of it?" "Yes, the bread I gave, the woman I killed, all of it. I will not lie. I will not make excuses. I will face what I have done." Nathaniel stood to leave. At the door, he paused. "Anna, the women you helped spoke for you today. That won't save you from judgment, but it means something. It is not enough." "No," he agreed, "it's not, but it's something." He left her there, alive and awaiting accountability, and went to find Caleb Whitmore. Nathaniel found Caleb outside the medical station, smoking a cigarette in the darkness. The sergeant from Alabama offered him one without a word. They smoked in silence, watching the camp slowly transform from death facility to displaced persons facility. The bodies had finally been buried. The sick were being treated. The survivors were beginning the impossible work of becoming human again. "You ever wonder if we did the right thing?" Nathaniel asked. Caleb took a long drag. "Every day since we got here. But specifically with her?" "Yes." Caleb exhaled smoke into the cold night air. "You know, my grandfather was a slave. Born in 1851, freed in 1865. Lived to see his son denied the vote, denied education, denied basic human dignity. My father couldn't vote in Alabama until he was 30 years old. I know what it's like when the system is designed to crush you." He flicked ash into the mud. "And I know the people who run those systems. They're just people. Scared, selfish, weak people who convince themselves they're doing right because doing wrong is easier. They tell themselves they have no choice, that they're just following orders, that they're victims of circumstance." "So she deserves mercy?" "I didn't say that." Caleb stubbed out his cigarette. "I said she's a person. People can do terrible things and still be people. That's the hard part, Nathaniel. If they were monsters, it would be easy. Monsters we can kill without thinking. But they're not monsters. They're us. Us under the right circumstances, with the right pressures, with the right fears. That's what scares me, that I could be her if I'd been born in Germany instead of Alabama." "So what do? We treat her like a person who did terrible things. We give her medical care because that's what medics do. We give her a trial because that's what justice demands. And then we live with whatever happens next, knowing we stayed human even when it was hard." Nathaniel thought about this. "You think she'll hang?" "Probably. Maybe not. Depends on the tribunal. Depends on how much mercy they think forced compliance deserves." Caleb lit another cigarette. "But Nathaniel, however it ends, you did right. You saved a dying woman. What she did before that, what happens after that, that's not on you." "Feels like it is." "Yeah, it does." Caleb's voice softened. "But that's because you're a good man carrying weight that isn't yours to carry. She made her choices. You made yours. Sometimes that's all we get." They stood in silence, two soldiers trying to find meaning in the ruins of atrocity, knowing that meaning might not exist at all. 7 days passed. 7 days where Anna's body healed, while her soul remained an open wound. The typhus broke on day 3. By day 5, she could walk unassisted. By day 7, she was physically recovered, ready to face whatever came next. On April 20th, Major William Bradford arrived. He was Judge Advocate General, 42 years old, with iron-gray hair and eyes that had prosecuted war criminals from North Africa to Germany. He carried a leather briefcase filled with forms, a portable typewriter, and a certainty about right and wrong that the camp had long since abandoned. His job was to document war crimes, identify perpetrators, build cases for tribunals. He was very good at his job. The interrogation room was the former camp administrator's office. Anna sat across a scarred, wooden desk from Bradford, her hands folded in her lap. She had been given clean clothes, a plain gray dress that hung loose on her thin frame. Her blonde hair was pulled back, revealing the gaunt angles of her face. Nathaniel sat in the corner as medical observer. Anna was still technically his patient, still weak enough that Captain Ashford had insisted on supervision. Bradford's questions were methodical. Name, rank, duration of service. Anna answered each one with terrible honesty. Yes, she knew it was a labor camp for Jews and political prisoners. Yes, she witnessed executions, 20, maybe more. No, she did nothing to stop them. Yes, she struck a prisoner once. Her voice never wavered. 6 months in detention had prepared her for this moment. "Describe the incident with the prisoner you struck," Bradford said, his pen poised. "A woman, maybe 50 years old. She tried to steal bread from supply room. My superior, Obersturmführer Koch. She ordered me to hit the woman. I said no. Koch said if I did not, she would report me for insubordination. So I hit her with stick, hard enough to make blood. The woman was sent to punishment barracks. I never saw her again." Bradford wrote this down with the same neutral expression. "Why did you remain at the camp when senior officers fled?" "I was sick with typhus. I could not travel." "That is the only reason?" Anna looked directly at Bradford. "No. I was also tired. Tired of running from what I did, from what I was. I thought maybe if I stay, if I face what comes, maybe that is better than running." Bradford closed his notebook. "Miss Bergman, based on this testimony, you will be charged with crimes against humanity. Specifically, participation in the operation of a concentration camp, complicity in the deaths of prisoners, and assault of a prisoner. Do you understand these charges?" "Yes." "Do you have anything to say in your defense?" Anna was quiet for a long moment. "I have no defense. I did these things. I wore this uniform. I was part of a machine that killed people. I tried sometimes to help. I gave food 3 times. But this does not erase what I did. It does not bring back the dead. I understand this." Bradford studied her. "You're very calm." "I have had 7 days to prepare for this conversation. 7 days that I should not have had. Sergeant Pierce gave me these days. I will not waste them with lies." Nathaniel heard himself speak. She tried to resist. She was tortured for it. She stayed when she could have run. Doesn't that count for something? Anna turned to him. "Does it? I hit a woman who was starving. I watched 20 people die and did nothing. I participated in a system of murder. That I felt bad about it. That I tried sometimes to be less evil. This does not make me good. It makes me coward who could not fully commit to evil or fully resist it." "So you deserve to die?" Nathaniel challenged. "I deserve whatever comes. Death, prison, whatever. I am alive because you chose to save me. Now I must live with being saved. This is harder than dying would have been." Bradford gathered his papers. The interrogation was over. Anna Bergman had confessed to everything. On April 23, 1945, Anna was transferred to a prisoner of war facility near Nuremberg. Nathaniel watched the truck carry her away. Their eyes met one last time across the distance. No words, no gestures. Just acknowledgement of the strange bond formed between a medic who had saved a life and a woman who had learned that sometimes living is harder than dying. The war ended on May 8th. Europe celebrated. Nathaniel did not. He spent VE Day in a field hospital treating German civilians caught in the final bombardments. Children with shrapnel wounds, old men with crushed limbs, women who had lost everything. The enemy, suddenly human. He thought about Anna often, wondered if she was still alive, wondered if he had made the right choice. He had no answers, only the weight of the choice, growing heavier with each day. October 1945. Nuremberg rose from its ruins like a broken tooth. The city had been flattened by Allied bombing, buildings reduced to hollow shells, streets cleared just enough for military vehicles to pass. But the courthouse stood relatively intact, spared by some accident of war, now hosting the tribunals that would define post-war justice. The main Nuremberg trials, with their famous defendants and international attention, were for the architects of genocide: Göring, Hess, Ribbentrop, the men who had designed the machinery of death. The subsidiary tribunals were for the implementers, the guards, the administrators, the people who had made that machinery function on a daily basis. Anna Bergman stood in courtroom 4 with 22 other women who had served as guards at various camps. They wore identical gray dresses provided by the tribunal, stripped of anything that might identify them as individuals. Just defendants, just accused, just people waiting to learn if their lives would end on a gallows or in a prison cell. The prosecution presented its case over 3 days. Testimony from survivors, documents bearing signatures, photographs showing the defendants in uniform, standing among prisoners, part of the machinery. The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable. These women had been there. They had participated. The only question was degree. How much had each one done? How much agency had they possessed? How much mercy did coercion and fear deserve? On the 4th day, Anna's name was called. She stood at the defendant's table, hands clasped, face expressionless. The prosecutor was a British officer, Captain Edmund Sheffield, who had lost family at Bergen-Belsen. His voice carried professional detachment that barely masked personal fury. "Miss Bergman, you served 8 months at Helmbrecht's concentration camp, correct?" "Yes." "You supervised prisoner work details, distributed rations, maintained order in the barracks?" "Yes." "You struck a prisoner who had attempted to steal food?" "Yes." Her voice was steady. 6 months in detention had given her time to prepare for this moment. "You witnessed approximately 20 executions and did nothing to prevent them?" "Yes." Captain Sheffield paused, consulting his notes. The courtroom was silent, except for the scratch of pencils, as journalists recorded every word. "The court has received testimony from survivors, stating you provided food to prisoners on 3 occasions. Is this accurate?" "Yes." "Why?" It was the first question that required more than simple acknowledgement. Anna took a breath. "Because I could not live with myself if I did nothing. Because the women were dying and I had food. Because it was the only thing I could think to do that was not evil." "But you continued serving as a guard?" "Yes." "You continued participating in the camp's operation?" "Yes." "Why didn't you leave? Why didn't you refuse to serve?" Anna's composure cracked slightly. "Because I was afraid. Because my brother was SS officer who would report me. Because I told myself that staying and helping sometimes was better than leaving and helping never. I was wrong. I should have refused. I should have faced punishment. But I was coward." Captain Sheffield nodded, satisfied. No further questions. The defense attorney, a weary-looking German lawyer named Helmut Brecht, assigned by the tribunal, called his witnesses. Sarah Klein took the stand first. She had been transported from the displaced persons camp where she now lived, slowly regaining weight, slowly learning to be human again. But her eyes still carried the weight of everything she had lost. "Mrs. Klein," Brecht began gently, You testified at the camp that the defendant gave you food. Is this correct? Yes, 3 times. Can you describe these incidents? Sarah's voice was quiet but clear. The first time was January. My daughter Rachel was dying from starvation. I was crying in the barracks. Anna saw me. She came back later with bread from her own ration. She whispered, "Für das Kind," for the child. My daughter lived 3 more weeks. Did you ask for this food? No. She gave it without asking. What risk did this pose to the defendant? If she was caught, she would be beaten, maybe killed. The SS did not tolerate guards helping prisoners. And yet she did it 3 times. Yes, Brecht paused. Mrs. Klein, in your opinion, does this mitigate her crimes? Sarah was silent for a long moment. The courtroom waited. I do not know, she finally said, her voice trembling. My daughter is dead. Anna's bread gave me 3 more weeks with her. 3 more weeks of watching her suffer. I do not know if that was kindness or cruelty. I do not know if small good actions can balance large evil ones. I do not know how to measure guilt and mercy on the same scale. But you testified on her behalf. Because the truth must include everything. She helped me. She hurt others. Both are true. I will not lie by omission just because hate is easier than complexity. Eva Kovacs testified next. The Czech political prisoner, 38 years old, her body still bearing the marks of 18 months of forced labor. She described the beating Anna received for refusing to strike a prisoner. Showed the tribunal her own scars from punishment sessions. Testified that she had seen Anna's scars when American medics treated her for hypothermia. She was tortured by her own command, Eva said. This does not excuse her participation, but it shows she was not zealot. She was a frightened person who sometimes tried to resist. The prosecution called rebuttal witnesses. Ruth Weiss took the stand, 36 years old, hollow-eyed, her voice shaking with rage barely contained. She says she felt bad about hitting my friend, Ruth said. She says she was forced. But my friend died in the punishment barracks 3 days later. Anna's guilt does not bring her back. Anna's small kindnesses do not balance murder. The trial lasted 2 weeks. Testimony piled upon testimony, evidence mounted. The prosecution built its case brick by brick. The defense chipped away at the edges, trying to find room for mercy in the mathematics of atrocity. At the end, the judges deliberated for 3 days. When they returned with verdicts, the courtroom was packed. Survivors wanting to see justice. Families of the accused wanting mercy. Journalists wanting a story. Soldiers wanting closure. The head judge, a Scottish barrister named Lord Campbell, read the verdicts in order of severity. 12 guards received death sentences. Women who had actively participated in executions, who had been cruel beyond their duties, who had shown enjoyment in suffering. The courtroom erupted in shouts, some of approval, some of grief. 7 guards received life imprisonment. 3 received 20-year sentences. 1 was acquitted, evidence showing she had been coerced at gunpoint and had actively sabotaged orders. Anna Bergman stood as her name was called. Lord Campbell's voice carried across the silent courtroom. Anna Johanna Bergman, you have been found guilty of crimes against humanity. You participated in atrocities. You wore the uniform. You followed orders that resulted in suffering and death. He paused, looking at her over his reading glasses. However, evidence suggests limited resistance within constraints of fear. Testimony shows attempts to provide aid at personal risk. Medical evidence confirms torture by your own command for disobedience. These factors do not absolve you, but they provide context. Anna's hands tightened on the rail before her. You are sentenced to 15 years hard labor. 15 years. Not death, not life. Something in between. Anna stood very still as the verdict settled over her. When Lord Campbell finished, she said clearly in English, "Thank you. I accept this judgment." In the gallery, Nathaniel Pierce sat in the back row. He had traveled from his new posting to attend the trial, needing to see how his choice to save her life would conclude. When the verdict was read, he felt something between relief and disappointment. Relief that she would not hang. Disappointment that the moral clarity he had hoped for never materialized. She was guilty. She had also tried to help. Both were true. Justice could not make that simpler. After the verdict, as prisoners were led away, Anna looked into the gallery. She found Nathaniel's face among the crowd. Their eyes met across the courtroom. She mouthed 2 words. "Thank you." Nathaniel nodded once. It was the last time they would see each other for 14 years. The years passed like water through cupped hands. Nathaniel Pierce finished his service in 1946, returned home to Tennessee, used the GI Bill to attend medical school at Vanderbilt. He became a surgeon, specializing in trauma, working with refugees and displaced persons who carried Europe's scars in their bones. In 1948, he married Lillian Ashford, the captain's sister, the nurse who had stood beside him in the medical station at Helmbrechts. She understood what the war had done to him, understood the nightmares that woke him gasping at 3 a.m, understood why he sometimes stared at his hands and saw blood that would not wash away. They had 3 children, Jonathan in 1949, Catherine in 1952, Rebecca in 1955. He built a life that looked normal from the outside, a house in Nashville, a practice that grew steadily, dinner parties with other doctors, baseball games with his son, piano recitals for his daughters. But the war never left him. Helmbrechts never left him. Anna Bergman never left him. She wrote once a year from prison. Brief notes on thin paper, stamps from the British occupation zone in Germany. She never asked for anything, never sought forgiveness, just acknowledged that she was alive, that she was working, that she was facing what she had done. Nathaniel kept every letter, never responded, but he read them. 1947. I work in prison hospital now, learning medicine from other prisoners. Some are Jewish doctors, imprisoned for resistance activities. The irony is not lost on me. I treat the women I once guarded. They let me because there is no one else. Is this redemption? No, but it is something. 1950. 5 years. I have counted every day. Not to freedom, but to accountability. Every patient I help, I think, does this balance? It never does, but I try anyway. 1953. I met a woman here, political prisoner, communist. She lost family to camps too. She asks why I help her when I wore the uniform that killed her family. I have no answer except I must try. She accepts this. We work together in the hospital. We do not speak of the past. 1956. I dream of the woman I struck. She has no face in my dreams, just blood. I wake and wonder if she had children, if they wonder what happened to her. I will never know her name. This haunts me more than anything. 1958. 2 more years. I am afraid. Not of prison, but of freedom. What does one do with life that should have ended in the mud? Lillian found the letters once, in 1959, tucked in the back of Nathaniel's desk drawer. She read them without asking permission, then sat across from him at dinner. "You still think about her?" It was not a question. "Every day," Nathaniel admitted. "Do you regret saving her?" He was quiet for a long time. Their children were asleep upstairs. The house was silent, except for the tick of the clock in the hallway. "I don't know," he finally said. "I saved a life, but I gave that life to someone who participated in atrocities. I don't know if that was mercy or just moral weakness disguised as principle." Lillian reached across the table, took his hand. "You saved a dying woman. That's what medics do. What she did before, what she does after, that's not on you." "Feels like it is." "I know, but it isn't." In May 1960, Anna Bergman was released from prison. 14 years, 8 months served. Early release for good behavior. She was 39 years old, gray-haired, worn beyond her years. She had spent nearly 15 years thinking about what she would do if she survived prison. Now survival had arrived, and she had no idea how to live in a world that had moved on while she remained frozen in 1945. She wrote to Nathaniel, asking if they could meet. He debated for 2 weeks, showed the letter to Lillian, to Caleb Whitmore, who had remained a friend through the years, to his pastor. Everyone said the same thing: "You don't owe her anything." But it was not about owing. It was about needing to know if his choice had meant something. He wrote back. 1 word: yes. They met in Berlin in June 1960. The city was divided now, a wall running through its heart, another division in a world full of them. The cafe was near Checkpoint Charlie, neutral ground between East and West, between past and future. Anna arrived first. She looked older than Nathaniel expected, 39 but appearing 50. Gray streaked through her blonde hair. Her face was lined with years of hard labor and harder thoughts. Nathaniel arrived 10 minutes late, having walked around the block twice before gathering the courage to enter. They sat across from each other. Coffee grew cold between them, neither knowing how to start. "I don't know why I wanted to see you," Anna finally said. Her English was better now, refined by 15 years of reading and practice. "Neither do I," Nathaniel admitted. More silence. The cafe bustled around them, people living their lives, unaware of the strange reunion happening in the corner booth. "So," Anna said quietly, "what do I do now?" Nathaniel stirred his coffee without drinking it. "I don't know. Live. Help people if you can. Try to balance scales that will never balance." "Is that what you do?" "Yes, I work with refugees, displaced persons, people broken by war. I save who I can." He looked at her directly. "I save people who sometimes don't want saving. Because that's what I do. That's who I decided to be." "And does this work help you?" "It helps me whether it helps them or not. You'd have to ask them." Anna absorbed this. "I want to be nurse. Real one. Work with people no one else wants to help." "Not to earn forgiveness. I know that is impossible. Just to try to be human." "Then do that." "Will it be enough?" "No," Nathaniel said honestly. "But it's something." They finished their coffee. The conversation never went deeper. There were things that could not be said, questions that had no answers, forgiveness that could not be given because neither of them had the right to give it. At the door, they shook hands awkwardly. "Goodbye, Anna." "Goodbye, Nathaniel. Thank you for everything." They never met again. Anna Bergman worked as a nurse in Munich for 18 years. She treated the homeless, the addicted, the outcast, people who fell through the cracks of Germany's economic miracle. She lived in a small apartment, spending almost nothing, giving most of her salary to charities for Holocaust survivors. She kept a diary where she recorded every patient she helped, as if building a ledger against the ledger of her crimes. She knew it would never balance, but she tried anyway. Patient number 1247, Klaus, homeless alcoholic. Treated pneumonia. He lived. Does this count? No, but I tried. Patient number 2891, Miriam, Jewish refugee from Poland. I did not tell her my past. I treated her broken arm. She thanked me. I wanted to confess, but stayed silent. Coward still. Patient number 4456. Young woman, overdose. Saved her life. She cursed me after. Sometimes being saved is not mercy. Nathaniel would understand. The numbers grew. 4,782 patients over 18 years. In 1972, a woman came to Anna's clinic. She was 60 years old, homeless, addicted to heroin. Her arm was infected from a dirty needle. Anna cleaned the wound, gave her antibiotics, asked no questions. The woman returned 3 days later, then a week later, then every week for 6 months. One day she asked Anna why she helped. "Because I must," Anna said simply. "That's not an answer." Anna looked at her hands. Hands that had distributed starvation rations. Hands that had struck a prisoner. Hands that now cleaned wounds and dispensed medicine. "I did terrible things once," she said quietly. "I cannot undo them. But I can do this. So I do." The woman studied her. "You were in the camps?" Anna hesitated, then nodded. "Which side?" "The wrong side." The woman was silent for a long moment. Then she rolled up her sleeve, showing Anna the numbers tattooed on her forearm. Auschwitz. Anna's breath stopped. "I should hate you," the woman said. "Yes." "But you're helping me now." "Yes." The woman pulled down her sleeve. "Then I'll let you. Not because you deserve it, because I need it." She kept coming for 2 more years. Never spoke of the camps again. Never forgave, but accepted the help. When she died in 1974, clean for 8 months, Anna attended the funeral. Patient number 3847. Another number in the ledger that would never balance. Anna never married, never had children, lived simply, spending almost nothing, giving everything away as if money could buy what could never be bought. In 1978, at 57 years old, Anna was diagnosed with cancer, pancreatic, stage 4. The doctors gave her 6 months. She wrote a final letter to Nathaniel before she died. 200 people attended her funeral, all patients she had helped, people who knew her only as the nurse who treated them when no one else would, who stayed late, who paid for medications from her own pocket, who listened without judgment. They did not know about Helmbrechts, did not know about the uniform she had worn, did not know about the woman she had struck, or the executions she had witnessed. They knew only the woman who had helped them. Her will left everything to a charity for Holocaust survivors. Every pfennig she had saved over 18 years with a note. "I can never repay, but I must try." The executor of her will sent Nathaniel the final letter she had written before she died. It arrived in Nashville in October 1978. Nathaniel was 65 years old, semi-retired, his children grown, his practice winding down. He opened the letter at his desk, Lillian reading over his shoulder. "Dear Nathaniel, if you are reading this, I am dead. This is good. I am tired. I want you to know what your choice meant. You saved me from the mud that April morning, but more than that, you forced me to live with what I did. This was the greatest gift and punishment. I spent 33 years trying to be better than I was. I never succeeded, but I tried, because you made me try. You didn't save a good person. You saved a guilty one, and you made her face that guilt every day for 33 years. I don't know if this was mercy or justice, maybe both. In my diary, I counted 4,782 patients over 18 years. 4,782 people I helped. I know this number. I also know the numbers I cannot count. The women who died at Helmbrecht's while I stood watch. The woman I struck who died in punishment barracks. The 20 I watched executed. These numbers will never balance. I understand this now. Atonement is not mathematics. But Nathaniel, thank you for believing even a monster could do something human. I will die with my sins, but I will die having tried. That is more than I deserved. Your patient, always, Anna Bergman. Nathaniel read the letter 3 times. Then he sat in his study and cried for the first time since the war. Lillian found him, held him, asked if he had done the right thing all those years ago. He thought for a long time. "I don't know," he finally said. "But I did the human thing, and I'd do it again." Sarah Klein died in 1997 at 95 years old. She lived long enough to learn of Anna Bergman's death in 1978. When the news reached her at the displaced persons home in New York, she sat quietly for a long time, then spoke to the social worker who had brought the letter. "She tried," Sarah said simply. "That's all anyone can do." The social worker asked if Sarah forgave Anna. "Forgiveness is not mine to give," Sarah replied. "My daughter is still dead. My husband is still dead. But Anna faced what she did. She did not run. She tried to balance scales that could never balance. That is something." At Sarah's funeral in 1997, her surviving family found a small envelope marked, "To be opened after my death." Inside was a letter Sarah had written to Nathaniel Pierce years earlier, but never sent. It read simply, "You saved her so she could face what she did. This was harder mercy than death. Thank you for believing even guilty people deserve the chance to try. Sarah Klein." The letter was forwarded to Nathaniel. He kept it with Anna's letters, another piece of the weight he carried. Another reminder that mercy and justice rarely align, but both matter. 1995. 50 years after the liberation of Helmbrecht's, a memorial ceremony was held at the site of the former camp. Survivors gathered, old now, their numbers dwindling with each year. Some liberators attended, the soldiers who had been young once, now carrying the weight of decades. Nathaniel Pierce, 82 years old, sat in a wheelchair, his body worn, but his mind sharp. Sarah Klein spoke, 93 years old, frail but strong-voiced. She told stories of the camp, of liberation, of the complicated aftermath. Then she said, "I want to tell you about a guard named Anna Bergman and an American medic named Nathaniel Pierce. She told the story. The frozen woman in the mud, the screaming guards insisting she was dead, the medic who refused to believe it, the impossible rescue, the complicated aftermath. This story has no clean ending, Sarah said. Anna was guilty. She was also human. Nathaniel saved her not because she deserved it, but because he needed to be the kind of person who saves. This does not excuse what she did, but it asks us, what do we value? Do we value only vengeance? Or do we value the human capacity for mercy, even when mercy is hard? Anna spent 33 years trying to atone for 8 months of cowardice. She helped nearly 5,000 people in 18 years. Does this balance? No, but it means something. Nathaniel carried the weight of his choice for 50 years. He saved thousands of patients over his career, but he never forgot the woman he saved in the mud. Their story reminds us that mercy is not weakness, that justice is not simple, that humanity endures even in places designed to destroy it. After the ceremony, a young journalist approached Nathaniel. "Sir, do you regret saving her?" Nathaniel was quiet for a long time. The question he had asked himself every day for 50 years. Every day for 50 years, I've asked myself that question. The answer is, I don't regret making the choice I could live with. She committed crimes. She faced justice. She spent her life trying to atone. If I had let her die, she would have escaped all that. She would have died a Nazi. Instead, she lived as a human who had to reckon with being a Nazi. Is that redemption? Number. Is it justice? Maybe. Is it mercy? I don't know. He looked at the young journalist directly. But it's what I chose, and I can live with it. Nathaniel Pierce died in 2000 at 87 years old. At his funeral, his daughter Catherine read from his journal, an entry written in April 1945. "Today I saved a woman who helped run a concentration camp. I don't know if this was right. I just know it was human. And if we lose our humanity fighting monsters, then the monsters win. I chose to stay human. Whatever comes from that choice, I'll carry it. Because carrying hard choices is what being human means. The measure of our humanity is not in what we do when it is easy. It is in what we choose when everything argues against it. When the world says hate, we can choose compassion. When circumstances say abandon, we can choose to carry. When fear says turn away, we can choose to stay. Nathaniel Pierce chose to save a woman the world said deserved death. Anna Bergman chose to live with her guilt rather than escape into the grave. Sarah Klein chose to speak truth even when truth was complicated. None of them found peace. All of them found purpose. Their story remains a reminder that mercy is not weakness, that justice is not simple, that humanity endures even in places designed to destroy it. If this story challenged you, made you uncomfortable, forced you to question easy answers about good and evil, then it did its job. These stories matter because they remind us that morality is not always clear, that sometimes the right choice is the one we can barely live with, that being human means carrying impossible weight and choosing to stay upright anyway. The choice to be human remains, even in the darkest times. And sometimes that choice is all we have. Sometimes it is enough.